We'll now begin Chapter 10, but first a synopsis on Chapter 9 of Russian Sunrise. Chapter 9 opened with Dr. Mike seeing a new patient, a Russian male professor who taught at Western Michigan University. After examining this patient, he tells Dr. Romanov that he has been sent to warn him about the stipulations the Russian Nobility Organization are making on his membership into their organization. In order to become a member, he must become Orthodox and give up his Catholic faith, or give up any of his potential rights to the throne of Tsar of Russia. If he refuses to do so, he would be killed. So now we're going to open up Chapter 10, and it starts on Thursday, June the 4th, Chapter 10, Thursday, June the 4th, 2015, at Our Lady of Fatima Church, the Cova d'Ira, in Detroit, Michigan. By Thursday afternoon, in just 1.5 days, Father Harold had managed to orchestrate the arrangements for Pope Nicholas's trip to Detroit, with everything confirmed exactly as he had proposed on the night the Pope received the Russian request. Don Brown had been thrilled by such an opportunity to drop everything and be of personal service to His Holiness, and had deferred in every way to Father Harold's specific requests. Father Frederick Ritter had been flown from Munich to Rome in the Brown Group's private jet, just as planned, and had already been dressed in his twin brother's papal garb and successfully installed at a quiet abbey as a decoy for the paparazzi. The Pope, Father Harold, and 4 Swiss guards had then flown non-stop from Rome to Michigan in the same private jet, arriving at Detroit City Airport on Friday morning. They had flown under the radar over Lake Huron, landing at a remote field in rural northeast Michigan. Then, as they approached Detroit from the north, it appeared as if they were arriving on a domestic flight from northern Michigan, so they were not required to pass through customs. At the airport, 3 large SUVs, each of different color and model, were ready for the motorcade up Gratiot Avenue to the Cova. The Swiss guards, dressed as civilians, and the Pope, dressed as a European parish priest in a black cassock and disguised with a wig and a false beard, rode in the middle vehicle with Father Harold. The 12 Brown Group security experts, dressed in plain street clothes typical for the inner city, occupied the SUVs preceding and following the Pope. Upon arrival, 2 priests in black cassocks could be seen entering the rectory, an entirely ordinary event at the Cova. Once inside, they were immediately ushered into Father Kirill's office. In a few minutes, Father Kirill arrived for the morning Mass. As Father Kirill entered his own office, he trembled, knelt before the Holy Father, and kissed the fisherman's ring, which Nicholas brought out of his pocket for the occasion, and then concealed it once again. The office door was closed, and conversation began. The Holy Father was on retreat, explained Father Harold, and would be spending much time in prayer. Once the church was locked for the night, guards would be posted, and Pope Nicholas would spend time in adoration before the Blessed Sacrament. Next, the Pope was introduced to Father Ivan Belarus, who had grown up in the Cova parish and had said his first Mass there in the extraordinary rite. Father Belarus was short, stocky, and had a full beard, neatly trimmed, framing brown eyes and a face which was neither handsome nor homely. In public he always wore a black cassock. Father Harold was recommending him to Pope Nicholas as a personal assistant for this retreat. In public, Father Belarus would always accompany the Pope and would do most of the talking, implying that Father Jacob had very limited English. In this way, others would not be likely to recognize the Holy Father by his speech. On Sunday morning, Father Balaris and, quote, Father Jacob would attend the orchestral Mass, but they would not be participating in the liturgy. The Pope would value the opportunity to thus pray quietly, without distraction, while the glorious music of Haydn would help to lift his soul toward heaven. So on Friday evening, the church was locked at 9 o'clock as usual, and Pope Nicholas entered to begin his private prayer before the Blessed Sacrament. No one else was to be allowed in the church except Father Balaris, who would stay in the back with the security radio and be ready if the Pope should require assistance in any way. Swiss guards and brown group security personnel guarded the church and the parish grounds. A three-quarter moon shone through a cloudless sky, and the city was mostly quiet. Inside the church, the lights were off except for spotlights illuminating the high altar. The red sanctuary lamp, announcing the presence of the Blessed Sacrament in the tabernacle on the altar, flickered quietly. Pope Nicholas prostrated himself before the high altar and again sought the advice and consolation of Jesus in this hour of terrible trial. He begged for forgiveness for himself and for all his predecessors since 1929, who had delayed, out of human respect, from fulfilling the simple request made by his Blessed Mother. He foresaw the rage and ridicule that would come from the world if he announced a plan to perform the public consecration of Russia. Minutes passed, perhaps hours, and the Pope remained in deep prayer. After some time, Nicholas moved from the main altar to kneel at a side altar where stood a traditional statue of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. "Nicholas," said a deep, thrilling voice, musical in its beauty. "Here I am, Lord." He knew it was the voice of Jesus, speaking to his heart. In 1917, my mother, my Blessed Mother, appeared to the children at Fatima and told them she would come back to request the consecration of Russia by the Pope in union with all the Catholic bishops in the world, to her Immaculate Heart. In 1929, she came back as she had promised to Sister Lucy in Tui and instructed Lucy to tell the Holy Father that it was now time to do the consecration, but it was not done. In 1931, I appeared to Sister Lucy in Ryanjo and expressed my dismay with the Pope's delay in performing the consecration of Russia. I warned that, if the popes delayed too long, they would fall into misfortune, like the kings of France, who delayed fulfilling another specific request for 100 years, and then suffered destruction. This year is 2015. In 2 years, it will be 100 years since my mother announced her request. Now is the time, Nicholas. Heaven has now offered you the extraordinary grace of the Russian request. This was obtained through my mother's intercession in response to tens of millions of rosaries offered by the faithful for the consecration of Russia. If you do the consecration, Russia will be converted and a period of peace will be granted to the world. If you do not do it, World War III will soon break out, and terrible destruction and the loss of many souls will be the result. But Lord, do we not have until 2029, 100 years after your mother came back to Sister Lucy in Tai to make the actual request? Strictly speaking, yes. But my mother first announced her request in 1917. I am asking you to do the consecration before 2017. 2 years, Nicholas. Do not delay. If you do, the devil will find ways to make it even more difficult until your successor finds himself trapped, like King Louis XVI of France, who in prison was no longer able to precisely follow the mandate of heaven. Lord, I believe in you, said Nicholas. O Jesus, help my unbelief. I am afraid of the world, that they will mock the church and despise your vicar if I do the consecration and then Russia does not convert. In acting as my mother has requested, you will come to believe completely that Russia will convert. Do not be afraid of men, who after they have killed your body have no more evil that they can do to you. Rather, fear him who is able to kill both body and soul in hell. Lord, you know that not all the bishops will obey me if I publicly order them to participate in the public consecration of Russia. The majority of them will obey, some begrudgingly, a minority will not obey. You must use the keys of the kingdom, which I first entrusted to Peter, and the power of binding and loosing. Those bishops who refuse to obey must forfeit their office as bishop. They must be told they are in mortal sin, reserved to the Holy Father alone, to absolve should they later repent. Lord, should I go back to Rome to announce the consecration? No, Nicholas. There is danger if you return before the day of the consecration. You should have it announced in Rome, with all the conditions imposed upon the bishops, while you are still hidden away here at my mother's beloved cova. You should only return to Rome by private means and in disguise on the day before the consecration. Otherwise, evil men will try to kill you. The voice stopped speaking, and Nicholas remained for a very long time in prayer. After a while, Father Belaris approached from the rear of the church, where he had been keeping watch, saying that it was now 2:00 in the morning, and the Holy Father needed to think about his rest. "Did you hear a voice?" asked Nicholas. "No, Your Holiness. It has been very quiet here tonight. No one said anything." "I am going to bed now, Father Belaris. Tomorrow I will be in retreat. On Sunday morning, please meet me at the rectory in time for us to be seated in church before the prelude begins. And remember, in public you must call me Father Jacob, and we will pretend that I speak very little English." "Yes, Your Holiness," said Father Belaris. "Oh, and Father Belaris, will you please inform Father Harold that we are going to do it? Jesus has told me I must do it now. Father Harold will understand precisely what I mean. Please ask him to pray for me." "Yes, Your Holiness," repeated Father Belaris, but he had no idea at all what it was that the Pope was going to do. On Saturday morning at 7:00, Dr. Mikhail Romanov made early morning rounds with Luke and Monica at Borges Medical Center. Medical students did not sleep in on Saturdays, or on Sunday either, this weekend, as they would be looking after Dr. Mike's patients under the supervision of a colleague while he went to Detroit. At 8:30, Dr. Mike's BMW pulled out of Nazareth and found its way onto the I-94 freeway eastbound. His fingers found the well-worn beads of his rosary, and he sought the intercession of the Blessed Virgin Mary on behalf of himself and all those for whom he daily prayed. He had added 3 new people, Maria and her parents George and Katerina, whom he had yet to meet. He knew they were in the choir, and he would be meeting them at the Cova this weekend. 3.5 hours later, the BMW pulled through the Fatima Cova archway off Gratiot Avenue in Detroit and parked behind the rectory. It was noon, and Father Kirill had invited Mike for a private lunch in the rectory office. After lunch had been delivered by the new housekeeper and Father Kyril gave thanks, their visit began in earnest. I still feel a profound sadness each time my new housekeeper appears, even though she is absolutely wonderful. It makes me realize how very much I miss dear Mary Moretti, said Kyril. She was in this parish since long before we first came here as teenagers, said Mikhail. When I think of quiet saints like Mary Moretti, I am reminded that most great saints remain unnoticed by the world. Worldly greatness counts for nothing in the end. Precious in the sight of the Lord is the death of his saints, said Kyril, who could recite the Psalms by heart. Mikhail noted that his brother was struggling not to shed tears. Then maybe it's a good thing I'm not a saint just yet, said Mikhail. The Romanovs sent a punk to my office this week to threaten me, Kyril. That's the real reason I needed to come see you. What? It seems they had their annual meeting in New York, and certain family members are not terribly pleased that I exist. What changed, Mike? You've never had dealings with the Romanov clan before, have you? Well, no. But sometimes I share my history with people I meet, who show some interest. Recently I told my 2 medical students about my family history because one of them inquired. And then I took Maria out for coffee after her recital, and she asked all about it too. She ended up saying she thought I should go to the Romanov ball and be proud to be a Catholic. I decided maybe she was right. Love is blind, Mike. Hey, I only met her once, Kyril. You do have impeccable taste, Mike. Maria is a striking young woman, very talented and unusually pure in heart. Good parents, only 18, probably quite romantic. She is attached to an outstanding young man of this parish, but he is my protege, so I know him well, and I suspect he's going to end up being a priest if he ever manages to tame his wild side. So you might have a slight chance, even though you're ancient. Yes, she told me all about Mark. Really? And that didn't scare you off? Well, at first, yes, but after she said I should go to the Romanov ball, I started thinking I would need someone to take along as my date. And so you got the brilliant idea of inviting Maria to go along with you to New York? Well, yes, and her parents, of course. It seemed perfect, since apparently all 3 of them are of royal descent. I wouldn't dream of taking her to New York without proper chaperones. And so you contacted the Romanov Nobility Organization and applied to go to the ball, and to also bring Maria and her parents, I suppose? Yeah, stupid, huh? Apparently. So what do I do now? What were these threats? Well, this muscled-up guy, about 40, showed up in my clinic as a new patient. He said he was sent by, quote, certain members, unquote, of the Romanov family to warn me that, since I have a good argument about being the rightful heir to the throne, it is intolerable that I am Catholic and no longer Orthodox. They seem to feel that could hurt the family's chances of restoring the Russian monarchy, so the family wants me to either become Orthodox again or to voluntarily and publicly renounce any rights to the throne. And if I choose to abdicate, then I also have to agree that I can never go back to Russia. They don't want to risk my becoming popular there. And if you agree to neither of these options, then I am very likely to suffer an unfortunate fatal accident. I get up to 30 days after the ball to decide. So, they do want you to attend the ball? Yes. I suppose most of the family hope to schmooze me while I am there, to see what nice people they really are, and to try to charm you into compromising your religious principles? That will never happen, Kyril. As St. Ambrose so famously said, Ubi Petrus, ibi ecclesia, ibi Deus. Where Peter is, there is the church, there is God. Have you already invited Maria to the ball? No, not yet. After the threat, I don't want her to have anything to do with these nasty people. Father Kyril sipped his tea and appeared to be pensive for a minute or two. Dr. Mike sat nervously, understanding his little brother needed some time to think and pray. Mike, I think you need to go to the ball. The thing is, hardly anyone knows who you are, from a Romanov point of view. If you go to the ball, the press will take great interest in you and in your future young lady and her parents. Then, if something untoward happens to any of you in the near future, it will not look good for the Romanovs. Getting your faces in the news is going to be your best protection. But I don't want young Maria to become involved in all of this. She already is. They know you like her, and they could attack her or her parents as a way of attacking you. As long as all of you are not publicly connected with the Romanov dynasty, any of you could suffer apparent accidents without bringing suspicion on the Romanov nobility organization. But once the press figures out that you exist, and that you have a claim which supersedes the claim of the current pretender, then you have some protection. The old Siubani method. The press and the police would ask, who benefits if something should happen to us? Exactly. So, then, my little brother, the good priest, is now advising me to take an innocent 18-year-old female parishioner of his with me on an overnight trip to New York City. Sounds bad if you put it that way. Just kidding, Kyril. But of course you would take her parents with you too. That goes without saying, bro. So, when should I invite Maria and her parents? There will be a champagne reception in the gymnasium after the orchestral mass tomorrow. A chance for people to meet the soloists. I'll introduce you to George and Katerina. I'll notify them today that you plan to take them out for dinner tomorrow afternoon. Then you can invite them all to the ball. I may be otherwise occupied tomorrow afternoon. Why? What's going on, Kyril? Can you keep a secret? I mean, something you can't tell anyone at all? Yes, Kyril. I'm your brother. Okay. Well, I have a secret visitor here this week. A priest from Rome who is a dear friend of Father Harold and has come here to the Cova for a spiritual retreat. So? This priest is also a bishop. Well then, as a courtesy, he would have to notify the Archbishop of Detroit that he was coming into his diocese, so how is that a secret? He didn't want to tell the Archbishop. Why ever not? Because he is the Bishop of Rome. But, wait, wouldn't that be the Pope? Exactly. Kyril, little bro, you know you never cease to amaze me. It wasn't my idea, Mike. It was all Father Harold's doing. Still, Kyril, I am continually astounded by the things you managed to pull off here, in the worst part of Detroit, in a parish that normally would have been closed down and sold off decades ago. The Holy Father is here in disguise, and he is excited about attending the orchestral mass tomorrow. He's quite a musician himself, you know. Oh, great. So now I get to sing for the Pope as a last-minute substitute soloist, and I thought I would be nervous just having Maria and her parents listening. You'll handle it fine, Mike. Now remember, you can't tell anyone at all, not even the Petersons. The Holy Father's security depends upon the fact that no one knows he is here. On Sunday morning, the sky would be brilliant blue, and the Michigan weather would be mercifully cool for a June morning. Being an inner-city parish with limited funds, the huge stone church had never been air-conditioned, but the massive limestone walls could retain the cool temperature of the previous night until close to noon. The solemn high mass would begin at 9:30 in the morning, with a concerto for organ and orchestra beginning 10 minutes before. But at 4 o'clock, in the pre-dawn darkness, Father Kyril came rapping on Dr. Mike's guest bedroom door at the rectory. "Mike, wake up! It's already 4 o'clock, and you have to play this morning." "I can't. I'm going to sing. Go away." "Mike, I mean it, bro." "Be quiet, Kyril. I'm going back to sleep. You should too." "You have to get up, Mike. Now." Mark Skyporsky, the Kova's supremely talented young organist for the Rheinberger Organ Concerto No. 2, has just called in sick. He's got a fever, chills, and vomiting, and he can't possibly perform. I know you know that Rheinberger piece, Mike. You recorded it at St. Luke's when you were a resident. "That was years ago. Be sensible and go back to sleep, Kyril." "No. You have to substitute, Mike. I can't get anyone else on such short notice, and the Pope is counting on hearing it." "Kyril, don't be ridiculous. I haven't performed it publicly in, 3 weeks. We did it at St. Augustine Cathedral in Kalamazoo before our last orchestral mass." See how divine providence works, bro? You're on, dude. The orchestra has already been paid and rehearsed. No one will notice a few wrong notes, except for me and the orchestra, and they'll appreciate the difficult situation you are in. However, you know me. I may be somewhat more critical, so you need to get up and practice. There was a moment of silence, and then Mike resumed his yelling at his younger brother. It was like old times, back when they were teenagers at home. "Great, just great, Kyril. First you tell me I have to sing the bass solos for Maria and her parents because your bass soloist had some emergency. Then you add that, oh, by the way, and there's nothing you can do about it, but the Pope will be here listening too, in disguise, but we can't tell anyone about that minor detail. And now you drag me out of bed in the middle of the night and tell me I have to go to practice the Rheinberger Concerto on the organ so I can perform it in, oh my gosh, 5 hours. Why did you let me sleep so late, little brother?" Kyril heard him jump out of bed and saw the light shine out from under the door. "I just found out, Mike. I'm laying the organ score here inside your door, and keys for the church and the organ loft. Get some coffee on your way out. I just brewed it for you." "Thanks, bro." "Oh, and if you happen to meet any muscled-up young men snooping around outside in the night speaking French, they're probably just a few Swiss guards from the Vatican disguised in street clothes from the hood." "Great! Now you get over to the church and practice, Mike. I'm going back to bed." In the dim light of pre-dawn, Mikhail found his way to the same familiar organ loft where he had begun organ study as a youth of 16. The Kova's 3-manual pipe organ had been upgraded gradually over the years by their youngest brother Vladimir Romanov, whose downtown Detroit pipe organ workshop was not far away. But Mikhail was basically familiar with it, and with the peculiar acoustics of this vast stone room. Before long, his fingers and feet were feeling limbered up, the coffee helped his concentration, and Rheinberger's magnificent concerto greeted the morning sun, just now beginning to glow through the stained glass windows. Mikhail had always imagined that this noble work, composed in the late 19th century, would have been suitable for a great state occasion such as a royal wedding or the coronation of a king. Today, however, unbeknownst to the faithful, It would be music to welcome a pope. By 8:30, the men's schola had completed the final rehearsal of their Gregorian chant. The full Latin Mass choir was beginning their warm-up in the school. Maria, their rehearsal accompanist, was leading the vocal exercises.